Hey everyone, it's Teach MA Dude coming to you with another video. This one's going to be a fun one that has nothing to do with teaching in Massachusetts, so to speak, but it does have to do with teaching in honor of 1 year on YouTube, which I'm so grateful to have had the past year to kind of share my feelings and perspective as a real Massachusetts teacher. This is going to be ranking my top 10 Harry Potter teachers, kind of based on a lot on the movies, a lot on the books. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan myself, so I'm really excited to bring you this video, and I will be counting them down from what I think was number 10, who was a pretty good teacher, pretty effective teacher, but not the most, up to number one, my favorite. And it's going to be based on a few factors, kind of like that I think apply to what good teaching looks like to me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. All right, everyone. So at number 10, we have Ferenz. And he was mostly depicted in the movies as a centaur, only in the Forbidden Forest, but he actually took over for Trelawney in book 5 briefly when she was sacked by Umbridge. And he was a divination teacher. I found that he was pretty effective. They talk about him more in the book, but he was a pretty good teacher in that he was very strongly engaging. He brought a lot of content knowledge with him. And in my opinion, in that regard, he was better than Sybil. But one thing I don't really like about him, and it's kind of from, as a centaur thing, and it probably comes from a distrust of humans, is he did bring with him a lot of what I would consider to be maybe arrogance, and how he really viewed centaurs as more kind of superior to humans. And I think as a teacher, you really want to kind of think of everyone, and you don't want to think of anyone as kind of better or worse than anyone else. We as teachers bring a lot of knowledge with us, and our students come to us in different places. And so it's important to always kind of respect one another and come in there with a respectful attitude. And kind of that's not what I always saw from Friends. So very again, competent, but again, number 10, because I think that respect element there, though he did have some good relationships with people like Harry, I felt like it was always underpinned by that little bit of disrespect and a little bit of arrogance. Number 9, speaking of divination, Sybil Trelawney. So I think she was a pretty effective teacher in some regards, and I think she was a very captivating teacher. She really got students kind of interested and was really good at building that kind of tension and interest around what divination was, and kind of getting students to be engaged and be focused on the content and kind of dive into it. I think ultimately what I'm not a huge fan about her is that I think she kind of struggled with people who weren't really into the subject, and kind of was we had Hermione kind of letting her walk out and kind of letting her say forget all about this. And of course there is concerns over the extent to which she was actually super skilled at her craft. As we know from the book, she was brought on by Dumbledore, not necessarily because she was a gifted person when it came to seeing the future, but because of the prophecy that she had made around Harry, that I think Dumbledore wanted to maybe more ensure her protection. I think Umbridge in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was adept at pointing out that she was not a very skilled teacher, and really had all of her stuff together. And definitely Umbridge was skeptical of her, to her credit. But I do think that she has a lot more to bring to the table than Ferenz, because I do think she more put herself on equal footing. And I think she did make good efforts to teach the students, even though I think at sometimes she's a little bit eccentric and a little bit out there. So I'm putting Sybil Trelawney at number 9. Okay, number 8, we have Horace Slughorn. He was the potions teacher in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. He was the potions teacher. As the only book, he was the potions teacher. He took over for Severus Snape when Severus Snape moved to the Defense Against the Dark Arts. And Slughorn was kind of recruited by Dumbledore. He was only really brought on because of the important role that he played with helping Harry understand more about Horcruxes, which were an important part of the last two books in the Harry Potter series. I think Slughorn brings a lot of skill when it comes to potions. And one thing I like about him is that he does develop a lot of good relationships with students that, he likes to brag about and kind of likes to, flex that he's able to translate into those long-term connections, right? He always talks about how he's got alumni that are like everywhere, maybe in the Daily Prophet, maybe in the Ministry of Magic, maybe playing for, a Quidditch team. And he kind of like leverages that to his advantage. And I think that shows like the lasting power that he has to really connect with students. The one thing I am concerned about, and I think Dumbledore is very adept at pointing this out, is that he really focuses a lot of his time on like the elite students, like the best of the best, right? He had a good relationship with Harry's mom, who I think is generally, as I understand it, considered to be one of like the better students. He like takes an interest in Harry because Harry is this person of like fame, and he really attaches himself to these people who he thinks he can parlay into people who will benefit him later on down the line. And so, like, even though Hermione is a very skilled student and a very skilled potions person, she's skilled in, almost every class she's in, he kind of is like skeptical towards her because of her muggle-born background, it seems. And he's not really willing to like consider the different backgrounds of everyone, and even some of the students who really might enjoy potions, and if they just had a teacher who believed in them, that they would really, do a lot to, kind of step up and rise those expectations. It didn't really seem like he really opened his heart to them. And he again had a very limited role in the series, so that's why I'm putting him at number 8. At number 7, we have Pomona Sprout, who teaches herbology. I love Sprout a lot. Even though she's not number 1, she's an amazing teacher. We see her in the movies kind of a lot, especially in the second book when she's making the potions, or working with to make the potions that will like unpetrify people. And what I like about her is she really teaches in like a hands-on way, and she really kind of makes herbology seem like a fun class. We have a guy like Neville Longbottom who really struggles at everything that he does academically and non-academically, but Sprout really takes like a liking to Neville Longbottom, and she's really willing to engage him and cater to his interests and push him deeper as a student, when many other teachers like wrote Neville off entirely. And Neville ends up playing a very, very big role in the Harry Potter series, especially as we get later on. And even in the epilogue of the series, does end up taking over in the herbology position at Hogwarts. And you have to wonder, if not for Sprout, would that have even happened? Would Neville have even seen himself as someone who's capable of doing anything? We also got to credit Sprout for being a major supporter of Harry when it comes to his belief that Voldemort is back. A lot of people turn their backs on Harry and are skeptical of him, and Sprout is a supporter of him in that regard. And even though she's not like a central character throughout the books and the movies, she is someone who seems to care about the students, and someone who seems to kind of push those students further. And I only put her in number 7 because I don't think she has as wide ranging of an impact as some of the other teachers, but I do think she definitely stands out as much more effective than a lot of other teachers at Hogwarts and on this list. So I'm going to put Sprout number 7. Number 6, we have Phileas Flitwick, the charms teacher. And Flitwick is a really interesting guy. I feel like he definitely, his character, his actor, at least Warwick Davis, was not the actor in the first movie, but I could be wrong. I feel like it was definitely like changed out, but it is what it is. Flitwick is a really great guy, stand-up guy, real gentleman, someone who really seems to make charms fun. He has them really engaging in like, what if we were going to think about like high school today, like engaging in a lot of labs based stuff, right? Has them like doing a lot of experimentation in class, has them, actually trying out the spells, teaching them not only theory but practice. And he has them, I just remember all the way back to when Guardian Leviosa in the first book, like actually playing with the feathers. But also Flitwick is a guy who is encouraging of all students. That's like the vibe that I get from him. He encourages all students in his class, and I think that's an important thing for any teacher because students are going to come in with the different levels of skills, and it's really good to have a teacher who's going to encourage the students, no matter where they're at, to find success. And so whether you have someone like Hermione who's able to make that feather float her first try, or someone who might like blow up the feather. I think that was like Seamus, I think, who blew up the feather. I think it was him. Really being supportive, really giving students another chance, and continuing to push students to do their best. And of course, we knew Flitwick put it all on the line. He was a major player in the Battle of Hogwarts later on, and he was willing to stick it out and defend his school and defend everyone's ability to learn there, even when a lot of stuff was hitting the fan. So I'm putting Flitwick definitely at number 6. All right, number 5, Alistair Moody. And honestly, I am putting him at number 5. And remember, this is about a ranking of Hogwarts teachers. So as we might remember, Hogwarts during the 4th year, the Defense Against the Dark Arts was Alistair Moody. However, he was impersonated for essentially the whole book. And in a teacher perspective, that's what I'm judging it on, by Barty Crouch Jr. So that is something I want to take into account. Now, I think Alistair Moody is one of the most influential characters in the series, but as a teacher, he's not really as influential because of the fact that he is impersonated for much of the book. That being said, the Defense Against the Dark Arts job, we might remember, is like a cursed position. We think it's cursed because of Tom Riddle, aka Voldemort. But I think that unfortunately, because of that low bar, and when we think about some of the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers who came before him, if we think about Quirrell in year 1, if we think about Gilderoy Lockhart in year 2, the bar was kind of already set fairly low up until year 3. So Moody, though, even when he was impersonated, I do think that, and especially thinking about Umbridge the year after, I think that Moody does actually teach the kids a lot of skills, some of which were valuable, some of which were a little bit scary, right? We think about the unforgivable curses, but that was like an important like introduction point for those spells. And I think what I like about this is that even though those were magic abilities that kids are ordinarily might not have been exposed to, right? We're talking about 14, 15-year-old kids being exposed to these unforgivable curses. At the same time, these were also kids who were forced to grow up pretty quickly. And I think it's important to be exposed to things that might be dangerous from a theoretical perspective, so you know what could be coming at you in the real world. And I think it's important that maybe even as Barty Crouch Jr., he wasn't going to baby the kids. He was going to expose them to the realities of life, because the reality is when we don't expose kids to that, we're sending them off into the world without an ability to actually figure out how to handle some of these challenges, and then they don't have the skill set they need. And I think that, especially again with Umbridge coming after him, and the idea that she's not going to actually focus on practice, she's going to focus on theory, that's where I think Alistair Moody definitely steps up, even though he's impersonated. But again, I think as someone who was impersonated, right? He wasn't actually the real Alistair Moody. I think he could have probably brought a lot more benefit to the kids if, especially as an Auror, if it was the real Alistair Moody. So I'm going to put him at number 5 in that case. All right, number 4, we have Minerva McGonagall. Honestly, one of my favorite teachers. I think she probably could have been ranked a lot higher, but I'll get into that because there's so many other great teachers I want to talk about from Hogwarts. Those of you who are really Harry Potter nerds like me might know that Maggie Smith was actually chosen specifically for the role of Minerva McGonagall based on her breakout role in the film The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, which is a 1969 film where she actually played a character who's very, very similar to McGonagall. She played a teacher who was like a no nonsense teacher in a girls' school in Edinburgh, Scotland. And it's actually pretty cool that J.K. Rowling saw this movie, loved this movie, and chose Maggie Smith for this role. You know, Minerva McGonagall is a no nonsense teacher, and she's what we might consider now to be like kind of one of those traditional, very strict teachers who doesn't take, again, no kind of nonsense you're going to get from her. She has very high expectations, and she expects the students to rise to those expectations. She's very firm and very serious. But also, one thing I like about McGonagall, and I think we see this more from her as the series progresses, she also is what I would almost consider to be kind of a warm demander, in that she also values the relationship she builds with students. And I think she gets to know the students better and have this stronger understanding and love and appreciation for the students. And when I see her, especially in the movies teaching, because I think that, you know, lends itself to like a better understanding of, you know, visually what she's like, you come to see that McGonagall is really like about, she really wants to teach the students. She really loves the students, and she wants to help them become better, you know, witches and wizards, and that's important to her. And that's why I feel like she takes the class work so seriously, because she understands the value of the work, and she kind of understands what's at stake as kind of a long established and well respected witch herself. And of course, she played a very big role, you know, when Snape kind of fled Hogwarts in the last book, really stepping up and taking an important role leading Hogwarts and leading it through the Battle of Hogwarts. And again, she's an all-around very talented witch. So I'm definitely happy to put Minerva McGonagall at number 4, one of the better witches that we're going to see, and an amazing teacher. I would have loved, even though I think she would have absolutely whooped my you-know-what in high school, I would have loved to have her as a teacher for sure. Number 3, Severus Snape, played by the late Alan Rickman. And many people would ask, why are you putting Snape number 3? If you don't know why I'm putting Snape number 3, you might not have read all of the books. And one thing that I always say to kids, and this is how I actually judge how much kids have read Harry Potter, how do you feel about Snape? I feel like if you genuinely hate Snape's guts, you haven't read the book or seen the movies through to the completion. Snape is, in my opinion, one of the better teachers in the book series when you look at him as a whole over the entire series. So Snape is you'll know, is the potions teacher for most of the series. He, for a long time, wants to become the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, which he eventually achieves in the 6th book when Slughorn takes over. You know, Snape, one thing I like about Snape to start is that he was a Hogwarts student himself and returned to Hogwarts as a teacher. So he took that passion that he had for magic, and he's a really skilled magician. He took that and he brought it with him to being a teacher. And look, this guy, like McGonagall, very traditional teacher, we probably consider him today, did not take a lot of nonsense. But again, we see that love for his students, right? And especially Harry. And it's interesting how one of the dynamics I love is that how he's really hard on Harry, and he's going to jump to take points away from Gryffindor wherever he sees it. But at the same time, beneath it all, kind of the love that he feels for Lily is kind of like seen through his, like, you know, how he works with Harry and how he works to kind of help make Harry the best person he can be. Snape steps up in the 5th book to teach Harry the occlumency skills so he can kind of fight back against Voldemort's attempt to invade his mind, you know, with mixed success. But again, Snape throughout the book, at the end of the day, while he is a very kind of focused on rote memorization, and really, I think would be better if he could push kids to think outside the box, he does teach a very engaging class, potions. He is very focused on the application. He is very focused on experimentation. And at the end of the day, he does play a central role, and he's willing to put everything on the line for the students and to really push back against Voldemort. fundamentally, and this is, as you probably might know, a spoiler, he is really a good guy, despite kind of coming off as an evil force. And he consistently shows that from book one, where he actually turns out isn't out to get Harry, he's actually out to save Harry from Quirrell, all the way to being what we might call like a double agent as the books progress. So definitely going to put Severus Snape at number 3. People are going to disagree with me, but this is where I'm going to stick with. Number 2, Remus Lupin. Now, I'm happy to say that I actually read the Harry Potter books as they came out. I'm old enough not to date myself, but I'm old enough to be able to say that. Lupin was one of my favorite teachers, like probably my favorite core teacher of the entire series. Like, I loved Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I loved that book, loved it, and Lupin was a major factor in that. And I actually tell kids, as like, kids nowadays don't read Harry Potter as much as they used to when I was a younger teacher. But like, I would always say to those Harry Potter fans, like, I would like strive to be like you're Lupin, because Lupin was a guy that, one, loved every single kid he worked with. One, loved the kids. Two, you could tell like Lupin loved what he did. Like, he was passionate about teaching defense against the dark arts. He wanted to educate the kids, but also he was a teacher who would have the patience to work with a kid of any ability level. So you think about people like Neville Longbottom, you think about people like Ronald Weasley, who are hesitant, who don't believe in themselves, right? The Boggart lesson, right? How he's able to take students who aren't confident in themselves and get them to try, right? Kids like, again, like Neville, who was written off by every single teacher, right? Or almost every single teacher. He would try that lesson that under Snape, under Quirrell, under an incompetent teacher like Lockhart or Umbridge, he wouldn't even feel comfortable trying. So to bring that confidence out, to make people feel like they're able to really be successful at things, was a really refreshing and really like uplifting quality that Lupin had. And I think Lupin also brings a lot of confidence with him. He's a very skilled wizard. He has a lot of background in the dark arts. He again, unfortunately, because of his background as a werewolf, we see this kind of today. It's let slip, and then all of a sudden the parents are in a brouhaha and he's got to leave the school. But Lupin is a guy who looks out for the kids, who's passionate about what he does, who wants to push the kids to be better magicians, and seems like a guy who's always going to make himself available to help students in need. We definitely see it with Harry, and Harry's got Lupin's got a connection to Harry through his father. They were part of the Marauders, and I think that you see that again through the what's happening in the book. But Lupin's a guy who really sticks around, and again, I was really sad to see Lupin leave. Like, I had a feeling it was going to happen based on like the trend of the books, but really outstanding teacher. And again, a guy I'd love to have. I would like, and I feel like I wouldn't necessarily be skilled at defense against the dark arts, but I feel like he's someone who'd make me like feel like I could do it. And that's a good quality that as a teacher I want to embody myself. Like, because I work and do a lot of math, and look, I understand there's a lot of kids who do not want to do math, do not like math, do not believe in themselves. And my goal, like one of my goals, is to always help kids find things that they can do successfully, believe in themselves, and realize that everyone has the ability to do well. And number 1, of course, Rubeus Hagrid, played by the late Robbie Coltrane. Rubeus Hagrid is one of the essential characters of the series. I'm able to call him a teacher. He was briefly a teacher in Harry Potter 3. Technically, he's also the groundskeeper for most of the series, so he's kind of like an adult role model. Now, we know that Hagrid was not born to be a teacher, not born to be one. Unfortunately, as we see from his teaching experiences in Harry Potter 3, he's one of those like first year teachers, and you can tell, right? His class is a little bit chaotic. He kind of struggles to like take on the like role and like the real responsibility. He's not really seen as a super competent teacher. And I think that he's kind of undermined by his relationship with Harry, Ron, and Hermione. I think they've become like a little bit chummy, which as a groundskeeper is okay. I don't think there's an issue with that as a groundskeeper. But then when they kind of parlay that into a role as a teacher, I think it creates like an awkward dynamic where he looks to those three kids too much. And then it's kind of like, well, you're looking to basically, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds to be like helping you figure out your whole class. And I think it kind of undermines his authority. But that being said, he's highly, highly competent in what he's teaching. He knows magical creatures up and down. And while he's not necessarily the best, wizard, and while he's not necessarily the most competent teacher, I think that he's undermined by the fact that he's only really given that 1 year to really try to be a teacher. And I think that if he had been given more of an opportunity, he really could have seen himself hit his stride. And that like resonates with me because honestly, after my first year, I thought about was teaching one thing that I wanted to do anymore. And two, something I could see myself being successful at. And one thing I always told myself in my first year is, hey, if you don't continue to teach, you might never be able to see yourself really increase your abilities and really get a lot better and really see some of the successes that I think you're capable of, is what I told myself. And, I think, more or less, look, in the past few years, I haven't always been successful, but I think I've unlocked a lot of beautiful and amazing teacher opportunities because I gave myself that chance. Again, Hagrid is amazing at forming relationships with kids. He's really good at making his class engaging and fun and exciting and bringing some of those really unique experiences to the classroom. Like, while he was, replaced by Grubbly Plank and some other folks, I really feel like the other folks didn't bring those kind of like really visceral, really exciting, really engaging experiences to the classroom that Hagrid did. And that's because Hagrid was willing to take risks. But without those risks, Harry would never have met Buckbeak, and Buckbeak ended up playing an important role. And so I think Hagrid really embodies a lot of those qualities of a good teacher. Whether he executed on them that well as a teacher is debatable. But I think, again, I'm putting Hagrid at number one because overall, strong importance as a character in the series, excellent quality as a teacher, great job with trying to engage everyone, great job bringing this high level of knowledge of the content to the classroom, and really a reflective guy who understands his limitations and genuinely wants to get better. And honestly, probably one of my favorite characters in the whole series. So definitely happy to give Hagrid number one in this ranking. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed my breakdown of the top 10 teachers at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. I really enjoyed kind of breaking this down for you as I hit my 1 year anniversary here on YouTube. And I'm sure that there's definitely things that you're going to disagree with or teachers that I missed. So please join the conversation, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, keep the conversation going because I'm happy to keep bringing this content to you. This is something I love to do and that I hope I can continue to do over the next year. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to another awesome year of videos and have a wonderful day.